Page 2141, page 2142, page 2143, page 2144, page 2145, page 2146, page 2147, page 2148, page 2149, page 2150, page 2151, page 2152, page 2153, page 2154, page 2155. Distinguished Senator Abulu Takumbo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move for the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 1st June 2021. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Patrick Abamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Abamoro, representing the good people of the Benue South Senatorial District of Benue State. I rise to second the motion that the votes and proceedings of the Senate of Tuesday, 1st of June 2021 be approved. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 1st June 2021 be approved, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 1st June 2021 is hereby approved. Letter from Mr. President. Dear Distinguished Senate President, transmission of the harmonized retirement age for teachers in Nigeria Bill 2021 to the National Assembly for consideration. Pursuant to sections 58 subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, I forward herewith the harmonized retirement age for teachers in Nigeria Bill 2021 for consideration by the Senate. The harmonized retirement age of teachers in Nigeria Bill 2021 seeks to increase the retirement age of teachers from 60 to 65 years and also increase the possible years of service from 35 to 40 years. While appreciating your usual expeditious consideration of this submission, please accept, Distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari. Petitions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator I.D. Gyang.
Thank you, Mr. President. A point of order this morning is Order 43, and I want to use this order to call the attention of the Senate to sustain attacks and serial killings in Plateau North, the latest of which happened last week. And by Order 43, Mr. President, with your kind permission, you may wish that I read.
Yeah, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The order reads, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. And having consulted with you, Mr. President, it's my prayer that I be allowed to make this presentation. Thank you.
No, it's personal explanation. You may proceed.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator I.D. Gyang, representing the blessed people of Plateau North. Mr. President, I am bringing this to the attention of the Senate, the sustained attacks and serial killings in Plateau North Senatorial District of Plateau State. And to say that Plateau State has been in the eye of the storm for long, when reference is to be had to the current state of insecurity across the nation. The killings and displacement of whole communities being perpetrated by insurgents and bandits, and the insecurity ravaging the nation used to have Plateau State as its epicenter. The unfortunate thing, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is that in Plateau State, the attacks are programmed at displacing host communities to forcefully take over their ancestral homes for permanent occupation. In most of the annexed villages and communities, the demographics have been altered and the original names changed to erase and deface their aboriginal standing and ancestry. Mr. President, the latest in this quest is the attack of last week on Kwi Village in Riom local government, done in Jos North local government, that is the community hosting the Jos Wildlife Park, and Mayango in Bassa local government. In all, over 20 persons were killed, with many houses set ablaze. I am notifying the Senate that the serial attacks on host communities are often preceded by advance notices from the attackers as to the date and locations. These are known to security agencies, but to the consternation of helpless victim communities, the attacks have remained unabated and culprits not apprehended to face justice. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the existential threat to communities in Plateau North, especially Riom, Biladi, Mayango, and now Dong in Jos North LGA, is grave, and I am calling for the enforcement of security to arrest and prosecute the perpetrators of these killings, whose identities and modus operandi is very well known and documented by the police, DSS, and the military under Operation Safe Haven in Plateau State. Another issue of concern, Mr. President, is the federal government's exclusion of Plateau State from its program of building 500 housing units for the resettlement of IDPs?
Distinguished, my understanding of personal explanation is it is supposed to be non-controversial. And my discussions with you did not include going into complaining about marginalization, and because these are things that are controversial. So I will suggest that you restrict yourself to what we discussed. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would want to use this opportunity to ask that the communities that have been affected by this latest attack be visited with some relief by NEMA. Meanwhile, I will request that this Senate observe a 1-minute silence in honor of last week's attacks on Kuidong and Mayango communities. Among the victims was a police constable, and I'm urging that we have a 1-minute silence in honor of the victims of this attack. Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. Thank you, sir. Over 20, sir.
Thank you very much, distinguished. I didn't hear the prayer. Did you? What was the prayer?
Mr. President, the prayer is I would want NEMA to assist the affected communities, but for the Senate is to have the 1-minute silence in honor of these people that have been affected, the victims of the attacks. Thank you.
Was anybody killed?
Over 20 persons were killed, sir.
Okay, thank you. Distinguished colleagues, because he has come under personal explanation, this is not subject to debate, and his request of a 1-minute silence in honor of our people, our citizens that were killed, is something that we need to observe. So let's observe a minute silence, please. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate. Point of order. Senator Benue Ododa.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise under order 43, personal explanation. With your kind permission, I would like to read. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, it will be recalled that on Wednesday, 21st April 2021, distinguished Senator Bulus K. Moss and myself co-sponsored a motion on the urgent call for a stop to the communal clashes between the Wajak and Lunguda communities in Gombe South and Adamawa South senatorial districts, and the need for NEMA to provide relief materials to the displaced persons. This followed the crisis that erupted involving the Waja and Lunguda communities of Gombe and Adamawa states. The prayers which the Senate graciously approved included a call to urge the traditional rulers of Waja chiefdom in Gombe State and Lunguda chiefdom of Adamawa State to impress on their subjects the need to maintain the peace and avoid resort to self-help in settling disputes, and also urge the state governments and political leaders of the communities in Adamawa and Gombe states to pay a visit to the affected communities to preach peace and the essence of peaceful coexistence. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am pleased to inform the Senate that the governors of Adamawa State, His Excellency Right Honorable Ahmad Umar Fintri, invited the governor of Gombe State, His Excellency Alhaji Muhammad Ino Yahya, to commission a road project in Numan on 19th May 2021. After the commissioning, the two governors and their deputies, along with traditional, political and community leaders from both states, and notably from the two crisis communities, held a security/peace meeting. Distinguished Senator Bulus K.M.O.S. and myself were in attendance. The meeting was addressed by the two governors, the two senators, the two first-class traditional rulers of Waja and Lunguda, the Hamapachama, and two other community leaders from each side. At the conclusion of the meeting, a communique, Christian Numan Accord, signed by the two governors and the two traditional rulers, was issued, containing, among others, 1, an affirmation that the two communities cannot be separated, having lived and intermarried for centuries. 2, a resolution that IDP camps be closed within 2 weeks and the people to be returned to their homes. And 3, a directive that all militia and hunters groups in the two communities be disbanded and their activities proscribed. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the governors also set up a high-powered standing committee under the joint chairmanship of the two deputy governors to see to the implementation of the resolutions. The two governors announced a donation of 25 million naira each to enable the committee carry out its assignment. I submit this for the information of the Senate. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Benue Yaro Dauda. And I want to commend the governors of Gombe and Adamawa states, our very eminent traditional rulers and leaders, and indeed the entire people in those kingdoms for resolving these issues that caused a serious problem. And this is the way to go. Managing people, ensuring peace and unity, and working for integration of communities to make a united and strong country is first, of course, the business of leaders in position of authority, but it is also the responsibility of other leaders at the lower tiers of government. And what has happened between Adamawa and Gombe states shows how working together, partnering and working for peace and stability can be achieved at that level of government. Thank you very much for the information. Leader of the Senate. A point of order, Senator Abba Moro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Abba Moro, representing the good people of the Benue South Senatorial District of Benue State. Mr. President, I come under Order 43 on personal explanation, which has been cited by my two colleagues earlier. I seek your permission, therefore, Mr. President, and the indulgence of my colleagues to skip reading the order and go ahead with my explanation.
Okay, it's 43, order 43. You may go ahead, please.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is with reluctance, with a heavy heart, that I have to come under this order of explanation on the violence that has attended the communities in the Benue South Senatorial District, which has become a recurring dismal. Mr. President, very many communities in the Benue South Senatorial District have come under violent attacks by hoodlums and bandits and community militia in recent times. One of such recently occurred between Odoke and Eza Efiom in Ado local government of Benue State and Kohaku local government of Ebonyi State. Living in the wake of it, injuries to many people and people fleeing their communities, which resulted in the establishment of two internally displaced camps at Igumale and Apa Okpozo in Ado local government area. Sadly, Mr. President, on the 30th of May 2021, Odokem, Atologa, Ndigwe, and Nduabosi communities of Ado local government in Benue State also came under similar attacks by people suspected to be herdsmen. In the wake of the recent attack, Mr. President, over 100 persons had been killed and their corpses deposited in hospitals across Ebonyi State. Consequently, sir, I wish to bring this worrisome situation to the attention of my colleagues and the Senate and Nigerians, especially that apart from my recent visit to the affected areas and the visit of the Deputy Governor of Benue State, no tangible intervention has taken place. Consequently, Mr. President, I want to make these following prayers. One, that this Senate observes a minute silence in honor of those killed in the recent attacks. Two, that we also urge the National Emergency Management Agency to quickly mobilize resources and rehabilitation materials to the victims of the attack and those in the internally displaced camps to ameliorate and cushion the effects of the crisis on the people. And finally, Mr. President, that we urge the Ministry of Defense and relevant security agencies to mobilize focal persons to the affected areas to provide some buffer between those attacking these communities and the communities, especially those in internally displaced camps. I so submit, Mr. President.
No, thank you very much, distinguished Abomoro. Because you have come under order 43, this is not something that can be debated here. And the only prayer that can be granted is to pay respect to the 100 people killed. So we observe a minute silence in honor of those that were killed. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill in my name on the Nigerian Council for Psychologists Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Council for Psychologists Establishment Bill 2021, HB 848, first reading.
Nigerian Council for Psychologists Establishment Bill 2021, HB 848, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator George Sekibo on the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps Act Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps Act 2003 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 695, first reading.
Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps Act 2003 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 695, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Suleiman Abdulkwari on the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act Cap C-15 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act Cap C-15 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 727, first reading.
Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act Cap C-15 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 727, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele on the Public-Private Partnership Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Public-Private Partnership Bill 2021, SB 735, first reading.
Public-Private Partnership Bill 2021, SB 735, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Adamu Muhammad Bulkachua on the National Wheat Development Council Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Wheat Development Council Establishment Bill 2021, SB 736, first reading.
National Wheat Development Council Establishment Bill 2021, SB 736, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting this distinguished Senate to consider the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, for the confirmation of the nomination of Major General Farouk Yahaya for appointment as the Chief of Army Staff of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President to be referred to the relevant committees for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, be referred to the appropriate committees for further legislative action. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Major General Farouk Yahaya for appointment as Chief of Army Staff of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And the report, the request of Mr. President CNC is referred to the Joint Committee on Defense and Army, with defense as the lead committee. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Joint Committee on Establishment and Tertiary Education and TED Fund. Mr. President, I want to request my colleague to do some small amendment to what is on the order paper. Actually, what we agree with to set up a joint committee under the leadership of the Committee on Establishment, but with the Tertiary and TED Fund as the other committee. So there is a joint report. This report is a joint report, but the leading committee is the Committee of Establishment. So the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Joint Committee on Establishment and Tertiary Education and TED Fund on the prohibition of discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas, Bill 2021, SB 297. Distinguished senators will recall that the bills will refer to the Joint Committee on Wednesday, 9 December 2020. So, Mr. President, we may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, Sardaunan Kano, and Chairman of the Joint Committee to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, Kano Central, Sardauna.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I rise to present for consideration the report of the Joint Committee of Establishment and Public Service Matters and Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on a bill for an act to establish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas, HND, for the purpose of employment in Nigeria and other matters connected therewith. Mr. President, I shall submit.
I need a seconder. Distinguished Senator Sadiq Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, where all are. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of our committee, our Joint Committee on Establishment, Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to make a motion.
Leader, let him lay first. Sadona, you may lay the report, please. You may present the report now.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, it may be recalled that the Senate at its plenary on Wednesday, the 9th of December, 2020, debated on the general principles of the bill for an act to establish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas for the purpose of employment in Nigeria and for matters connected therewith. The bill, Mr. President, was sponsored by distinguished Senator Ayo Akin-Yeleru. After deliberations on the floor of this hallowed chamber, it was read the second time and referred to the Senate Joint Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund and Establishment and Public Service Matters for further legislative action. The core objective of this bill, Mr. President, seeks to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diploma for the purpose of employment only in Nigeria while seeking to close up the gap and allow for accelerated career progression of those that are otherwise stagnated and vulnerable of such discrimination in public service. In specifics, the intendment of the bill is to, among other things, seek to, 1, address the discrepancies between first degree and higher national diploma for the purpose of employment in public service establishments, ministries, departments, and agencies of government, and provide sector space in Nigeria. And 2, to identify the problems and proffer solutions to end the dichotomy between the two certificates. Consequent upon the referral of the bill, President, the committees resolved to conduct a public hearing in order to establish the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats associated with the bill, with a view to identifying what should propel it to support Nigeria's education sector and welfare workers. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, at this juncture I wish to inform you that the Joint Committee has critically pursued into the provisions of the bill vis-à-vis presentations made by stakeholders and carried out some amendments on the bill, ranging from identification of pitfalls and lacuna, editorial corrections, and redraft some of the provisions where necessary to tally with the best normative standard in legislation for the bill to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas, HND, for the purpose of employment only in Nigeria. From the views canvassed, Mr. President, by the stakeholders at the public hearing and subsequent analysis of the presentations made, both oral and written, the committees make the following observations. The enactment of the bill to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas for the purpose of employment in Nigeria will no doubt free holders of HND from stagnation and ensure a balanced treatment with their counterparts from other higher tertiary institutions in Nigeria for the purpose of employment. The abolishment of the existing dichotomy between HND holders and graduates of universities will definitely bring a new lease of life for HND holders and meet the huge manpower needs of Nigerians and providing a range of patriotic contributions among the employees in both public and private sectors, ensuring social solidarity, fairness, social justice, and enhanced corporate governance in the country. Hence the need for the Senate to consider and approve this legislative proposal. Recommendations, Mr. President. The Joint Senate Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters and Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund, to which the bill was referred, having carefully considered same, hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate do consider and pass the bill to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas HND for the purpose of employment only in Nigeria. Bill 2021 as recommended. I wish to use this opportunity, Mr. President, to thank your very good self and distinguished colleagues for the opportunity to serve in this capacity and humbly request the Senate to consider and pass this bill. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any comments? Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this is not a controversial bill and has 8 clauses. So, but I've noticed there are 2 clauses, the interpretation and the explanatory memorandum, that have new things inside. So I believe that we need to take them separately so that anybody can make an observation on the insertions. So, those in favor that the first clause, clause 1, stands part of the bill, say aye. Yes, Deputy Leader.
Thank you, sir. From my own education, I want the chairman to tell me exactly what public sector economy means in reference to this bill. Public sector economy.
What is the public sector economy? The recommendation. But I said they said for the purpose of employment and career progression at workplace in the public and private sectors of the Nigerian economy. Okay, Chairman, the Deputy Leader is asking, I don't know whether the Deputy Leader has a suggestion. Leader, you raise an issue. Do you have a suggestion you can make, or you just need an explanation? Okay. Chairman, he is asking what is the public and private sector economy, right? Before the chairman, you may sit down. Before the chairman takes the floor, my understanding of this is that in both the public sector, where government is, and the private sector, the difference between the HND and university degree should not exist. That's my understanding. It's not limited to government alone. Okay, so are you satisfied? No. Are you satisfied? No, you have an advocate, but if you have another view, you can express it, because this is where we have to get it right. Okay, so Chairman, the deputy leader said he is satisfied. But distinguished colleagues, let me make this clear. We are not going to start debating this thing now. This is not second reading. You vote against it or for it. No. The point is, at this point, you vote on the clauses, not discussing the principles. We are past that stage. So we may not agree with something. So I will put the question once again, please. Those in favor that clause 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2, clause 3. Those in favor that clauses 1 and 2 and 3 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 4 is redrafted. Clause 4 is redrafted. So those in favor that clause 4 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 5 is retained. Oh no, redrafted to clause 5. Yes, Senator I.D. Young.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. In clause 5, the implication by what we have in clause 5 is that it is going to take retrospective effect. No, it's not allowed. And the implication is that it will take retrospective effect, and if that is the position, so that it will be very clear for the implementing agencies.
Yeah. Just hold on, Susam, I'm coming. The point he raised maybe is because of the way we have couched this, that upon the commencement of this bill, any person who has been discriminated against, I think he may be right. So I'm not a lawyer. If we say, for example, any person who is discriminated, who is discriminated against, will that cure it? Okay, Senator Suswam.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to align myself with Senator I.D. Gang. In law, this is ineffective. I think we need to redraft this completely and then move forward, because there is no way that we are going to do or draft or come out with a law here that is going to take a retrospective effect. That will not happen. So I think that particular clause should be redrafted to only take effect from the time that this bill will be signed into law. That is the only way it can work, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, I at the risk of sounding like I've taken a position, I reason the same way, that it shouldn't take retrospective, because that would be a serious crisis. that's why I was suggesting whether it will cure it if we say who is discriminated, because if you say who is, it's going to be from the time this this bill is signed into law. It will not take retrospective effect, but I don't know, leader.
I think we need to amend that section to read, I make this proposal to read, upon the commencement of this bill, holders of higher national diplomas or first degrees in any field whatsoever shall be placed on the same status. Full stop.
Yes.
Yes? What I'm saying is that I'm making some suggestion, that upon commencement of this bill, holders of higher national diplomas or first degrees in any field whatsoever shall be placed on the same status. Full stop. Full stop. Yes, I think that's what the bill wants to do. That's what the bill wants to do.
I need a seconder. Senator Ishatu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Aisha Daira Ahmed Binani, representing Adama Central. I rise to second the amendment as put by the leader of the Senate. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that clause 5 as amended stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Secretary, take note of the amendment, please. Clause 6. Those in favor that clause 6 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 7. So this clause 7. Those in favor that clause 7 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And clause 8. Those in favor that clause 8 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. No, sorry. I haven't finished yet. No, it's okay, Leader. You may sit down, please. Those in favor that the interpretation stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for this Senate to resume plenary for the chair to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Those in favor that the chair reports progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Suswam.
Is not in any way to downgrade the qualification of any person. But Mr. President, Polytechnic was set up to train people for middle cadre, middle level manpower, and also for more for practical aspect and practical training. And so, Mr. President, I'm saying that for us to pass a law here, no, I'm just making this, and I know that it's not going to be a popular decision, but I wanted to, No, I agree we've passed the stage, but I'm just making this comment. I'm expressing an opinion. Okay, you.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the prohibition of discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clauses 1 to 4 as recommended, clause 5 as amended, clause 6 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, the explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion that the prohibition of discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas Bill 2021 be now read the third time. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second. Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degree and higher national diplomas for the purpose of employment and promotion in Nigeria and for related matters 2021 SB 297, third reading.
A bill for an act to abolish and prohibit discrimination between first degrees and higher national diplomas for the purpose of employment and promotions in Nigeria and for related matters 2021, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Well, congratulations to the Senate. This particular issue has been in the front burner for a long time. I recall that in the House of Representatives between 2003 and 2007, this was one bill that was so important and is one way of encouraging our polytechnic graduates. That should not take away from the kind of training they receive, but in fact it's supposed to be a motivation for our polytechnic graduates. And I pray that the federal government and all those government agencies and the private sector would start to implement this by the time the President assents to this bill. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee of Tertiary Education and TED Fund on the National Institute for Border Studies, IMECO, Establishment Bill, etc., 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Wednesday, 7th October 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ayo Akinye-Lure to represent distinguished Senator Ahmed Babaketa, in whose absence Senator Ayo Akinye-Lure will deputize to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Patrick Ayo Akinye-Lure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name remains Senator Ayo Akinye-Lure, representing Ondo Central. On behalf of the chairman of the committee, Senator Ahmad Babaketa, I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institution and TED Fund on the National Institute for Border Studies, IMECO, Establishment Bill 2021 SB 266. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
I need a seconder. Distinguished Senator Ibukule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibukule Amosu, I represent Ogun Central. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Akinyolure that these distinguished units do consider the report on Committee on Tertiary Institution and State Fund on the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Institute of Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of our Committee on Tertiary Institutions and State Fund, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may let the report, please. Chairman, you may present the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, on behalf of the chairman of the Committee on Tertiary Institution and State Fund, report of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institution and State Fund on a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of National Institute of Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State, to provide for teaching, research, institution and trainings of students in border management and for other related matters. Bill 2021, SB 266. Preambles. The Senate at its plenary on Wednesday, 7th October 2020, debated on the general principle of the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of National Institute for Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State, to provide for teaching, research and training, and institution of students in border management, and for other matters connected therewith, which was sponsored by the Civil Senator Tolulope Odebiyi, Ogun West. After extensive deliberations, Mr. President, the bill was read for the second time and referred to the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institution and State Fund for further legislative action. Where Senate order of referral dated Monday, 12th October 2020, and to report back with its recommendation. Broad objects for the bill. The hallmark of the bill is to provide a legislative framework to support the establishment of National Institute of Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State, to nurture innovations in its core areas of interest, with credence as National Institute to meet learning, research, instructional and teaching aids of the prospective students of the host community in particular, Nigeria and the world as a whole. The legislative framework is designed for the institute to offer courses leading to the award of degrees and diplomas on both full-time and part-time basis to cover both, but not limited to entirely the following migrations: refuge and transborder management, border security and other areas of governance, social sciences, arts and humanity. Specific objective of the bill. In specific, this legislative proposal is to, among other things, seek to achieve entirely the following. 1. The bill is designed to dispense and inculcate grounded knowledge in both technical and managerial know-how to enrich focus of the prospective students and as well prepare them to develop capacity and capability, not only to understand complex and dynamic structures in border management, but also to offer deeper knowledge of de-escalating any security risks and transborder crime and security challenges within Nigerian borders around the southwestern states in particular and the country in general, with tremendous benefit for all. 2. The establishment of the Institute of Border Studies and Management in Meko, Ogun State will serve as a pedestal for the development of knowledge through cutting-edge research and will offer academic programs leading to degrees and postgraduate diplomas with emphasis on border studies, management, and it provides professional teaching and instruction in promotion of rationalism in science and art of border studies and management in Nigeria and beyond. 3. The Institute will help develop and disseminate multidisciplinary knowledge and innovations in social and management sciences and equip students with practical knowledge in professional areas relating to core objectives of the bill establishing the Institute. After the legislative action, the highlights of the proceedings of the public hearing, the committee came with the following recommendations, findings and recommendations. From the views expressed by the stakeholders at the public hearing and subsequent analysis of both oral and written presentation of memoranda, the committee hereby make the following observations and findings. That the establishment of the National Institute of Border Studies in Ogun State will certainly go a long way in calibrating the spread of educational infrastructure needs, while balancing access to education among diverse demographics in the country, thereby closing up the gap in border management, improve safety and security of country border, and ensure a secure, peaceful, and friendly neighbors, and as well as enhance diplomacy with countries within the Africa and sub-region. 2, the stakeholders who made both written and oral submissions at the public hearing unanimously subscribed to the content of the draft bill, while noting that the establishment of National Institute of Border Studies and Management in Ogun State will provide grounded knowledge, skills, training, and provide instruction and teaching to practitioners and experts in border management to utilize what was acquired in collaboration with border officials to check excesses and proliferation of small and light arms, weapons and ammunition, as well as reducing activity of bandits, drug baron and launderers, criminal behavior around Nigerian border, which is architectural and in a manner retrogressive and detrimental to smooth implementation of national security and development framework. Hence, the stakeholders at the arena of the public hearing gave their overwhelming and conflicting social solidarity in support of the passage of the bill by the National Assembly. Finally, Mr. President, let me go to a recommendation of the committee. The Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Form, to which this bill was referred, have carefully considered same, hereby recommend as follows. That the Senate do consider and pass the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Institute of Border Studies and Management in Ogun State, to provide for teaching, research, instructions, and training of students in border management, and for other matters connected therewith, establishment Executive Bill 2021, as recommended. Conclusion. In conclusion, I wish to use this moment to thank the Mr. President of the Senate and the speaker colleagues for opportunity given to us to serve in this capacity, and to humbly request the Senate to pass the bill. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any observations or comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report clause by clause, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this bill has 32 clauses, and because it's seeking the establishment of a National Institute for Border Studies, it's not a controversial bill, but all the same, we should make our own observations. Those in favor that clause 1, clause 2, and clause 3 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 4, 5, and 6 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 7, 8, and 9 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 10, 11, 12, which are all retained that they stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 13, 14, and 15 all retained that they stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clauses 16, 17, and 18. Those in favor that they stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 19, 20, and 21 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 22, 23, and 24 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 25, 26, and 27 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 28, 29, and 30 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that clauses 31 and 32 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the interpretation stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the schedules stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to resume plenary to allow the chair to report progress. I so move.
I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the chair reports progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate and the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund on the National Institute for Border Studies, IMECO, Ogun State, Establishment Bill 2021, and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clauses 1 to 30 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules as recommended, the explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the bill for an act to establish the National Institute for Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State to provide for teaching, research, instruction, and training of students in border management and for related matters 2021 to be read the third time. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the National Institute for Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State, to provide for teaching, research, instruction, and training of students in border management and for related matters 2021, SB 266, third reading.
A bill for an act to establish the National Institute for Border Studies in Meko, Ogun State, to provide for teaching, research, instruction, and training of students in border management and for related matters 2021, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Health and Secondary and Tertiary on the Federal Orthopedic Hospitals Management Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Saturday, 17 December 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahaya Oluregbe, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahaya Oluregbe.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Ibrahim Yahya Oloriegbe. I represent Kwara Central Senatorial District. I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Health, Secondary and Tertiary on the Orthopedic Hospital Management Board Act, CAP 010-LFN 2004, Amendment Bill 2021. I so move, Mr. President.
I need a seconder. Senator Senator Peter Nwobushi. Distinguished Senator Peter Nwobushi. You are to second the motion. No, the motion moved by Senator Ibrahim Olorogbe that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Health.
Senator Peter Nwobushi, Delta North. I hereby support the motion moved
Just stop the motion.
The motion moved by Senator Olorogbe. I so support.
Senator Olorogbe doesn't sit around there. You pointed at the wrong direction. Nobody should disturb Senator Peter Nwobushi, please. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of our Committee on Health, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may lead the report, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, you may present the report, please.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to present the report of the Committee on Health on a bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospital Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of Federation of Nigeria 2004, and further related matters, and to provide for the establishment of the Federal of Federal Orthopedic Hospital, Kuta, Bill 2021, SB 279. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Senate, at its sitting on Thursday, 17 December 2020, read for the second time the bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospital Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of Federation, LFN 2004, for other related matters, and to provide for the establishment of Federal Orthopedic Hospital, Kuta, Niger State, Bill 2021, and refers same to the Committee on Health for further legislative action. The bill was sponsored by Senator Musa Mohammed Sani, seeks to amend the Orthopedic Hospital Management Board Act by providing for the establishment of a Federal Orthopedic Hospital in Kuta, Niger State. Having adopted the methodology stated on page 2 of the report, the committee was able to gather information and add a consideration, a clause-by-clause consideration of the bill, and came up with recommendation.
Distinguished colleagues, let me advise, please. Those of us who are not wearing their masks, please, you should do so. Continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The observation of the committee, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Nigeria's population is estimated at over 200 million, making it one of the most densely populated countries in the world. The country is plagued with poverty and extremely high burden of diseases, including orthopedic diseases, which are listed in the report. Orthopedic specialized care of medicine concerned with musculoskeletal system, responsible for many important functions, including joint replacement, fractures, joint pain, etc. An orthopedic hospital is important in improving healthcare of patients. By locating a specialist hospital in Kuta, it will bring in healthcare closer to residents of the densely populated area, both urban and rural, and implication extending their lifespan. The key objective of the orthopedic hospital in Kuta, when established, is to provide services such as diagnosis and treatment from traumatic events such as accidental falls, car accidents, sport injuries, and other emergencies. It also brings healthcare closer to the people at reduced cost compared to what they do now by patronizing private hospital and quackery. In addition to the above advantages, it will deter patients from patronizing traditional bone setter who enjoy patronage in the absence of specialized orthopedic hospital. The orthopedic hospital will be affiliated to University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada, to provide further advanced specialized treatment when required. Recommendation, Mr. President. After a clause-by-clause consideration of the bill, the committee recommends that amended bill be approved as recommended in this report. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee would like to thank the Senate President and the entire Senate leadership and my distinguished colleagues for the opportunity given us to serve in this capacity. I so submit, Mr. President.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to resolve on the Committee of the Whole to consider this report.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this again is not a controversial bill. Those in favor that clause 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2 Those in favor that clause 2 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 3. Those in favor that clause 3 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 4. Those in favor that clause 4 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the short title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The explanatory memorandum. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The long title. Those in favor that the long title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to resume plenary to allow the chair to report progress. I so move.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second the motion that Mr. Chair report to plenary to report progress.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the chair reports progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Health and Secondary on Health on the Orthopedic Hospital Kuta Establishment Bill 2021 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. Clauses 1 to 2 as recommended. The short title as recommended. The schedules as recommended. The explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for the Senate, for the Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta Establishment, etc. Bill 2021 to be read the third time. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for the establishment of the Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta and for other related matters, 2021, SB 279, third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act, CAP 010, Laws of the Federation, CAP 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to provide for the establishment of the Federal Orthopedic Hospital Kuta and for other related matters, 2021. Third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Congratulations.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of the Project Continuity Bill 2021. The distinguished senator will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Thursday, 28th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barrow Jibril to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Senator Barrow Jibril, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibril. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, I stand to move to be allowed to read the lead debate on a bill for an act to make comprehensive provision for each of the governments of the Federation to establish and maintain project implementation plans plan for the implementation of projects within their jurisdiction from inception to conclusion and for other matters connected thereto. 2021 SB 224. Mr. President, I so move.
Now you may continue. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the lead debate on compulsory development planning and project continuity bill 2021 SB 224. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead a debate on this very important bill, which was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Thursday, the 28th day of November 2019. The bill seeks to make development planning compulsory for all tiers of government and to create coherent and measurable targets in developmental initiatives in support of the attainment of goals which, among other things, will place Nigeria among one of the largest economies in the world. The bill seeks to make comprehensive provisions for each of the governments of the Federation to establish and maintain project implementation plans for the implementation of projects within their jurisdiction from its inception to conclusion, to, among other things, indicate the economic priorities of the particular tier of government, state the goal of the project and program as a developmental initiative, list the specific projects and programs to be executed within time frame, identify funding resources and implementation strategies, indicate the financial sustainability of the program or project, state the environmental impact assessment of the projects, and indicate any other matter pertinent to the viability of the plan. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, all over the world, government is a continuum. Ideally, once the battle of leadership of a nation is handed over to a new government, the onus lies on the regime to embrace the projects, policies, and programs of the previous administration without recourse to any personal, party, or primordial interest. However, one major identifiable drawback to social, economic, and infrastructural development in Nigeria is lack of continuity of policies and programs of government at the federal, state, and local government levels. State resources are poorly managed, and some political leaders often embark on white elephant projects that cannot endure the test of time at the twilight of their tenures. This unfortunate tradition has badly characterized governance and induced corruption since 1999. As of June 2011, the Presidential Projects Assessment Committee, led by Architect Ibrahim Bunu, a former Minister of Federal Capital Territory, had reported that there were 11,886 abandoned federal and state government projects dotting the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, which will require 7.78 trillion naira to complete. This amount has gone up as we speak. The committee revealed that political and personal considerations outweighed national interests in the award of contracts. The majority of the contracts, the committee said, were procurement-driven rather than development-driven. With this ugly political trend and worrisome disposition of some politicians, the nation is utterly consigned to retrogression, if not urgently checked. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, this this bill provides sure remedy to the lack of seamless developmental plan for the nation. It rises above primordial sentiments and stands to quarantine any regional neglect or political vendetta. The proposed bill professes enduring legacies and showcases excellent promises to Nigerians. Firstly, Section 4 of it states that it shall be unlawful for a government of the Federation to have an abandoned project in any part of Nigeria. Second, it calls for establishment of a registry of projects for all ongoing and completed projects, detailing the location, cost, and purpose of each project, a means of identification, the project commencement date, and the agreed or projected date of completion. Third, the register shall also include information on budgetary and funding sources of the project, the contractor in charge of the project, amount disbursed and expended on the project, the estimated amount required for the completion, and any other information or details pertaining to the implementation of the project. Section 3 makes formulation of the development plan compulsory for all the 3 tiers of governments in Nigeria. Why have we habituated too long on this mount? This is because of the thinking that the credit and the glory will go to the previous administration if the new one continues with the projects it initiated. But governance is a continuous exercise, and 2 administrations are bound to take credit for initiating, continuing, and completing large-scale projects. The most important consideration should be national interest instead of personal credit or glory in the execution of government projects. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, it's a bill of immense societal benefit. Let us therefore give it an accelerated hearing and passage it deserves for the good of our nation, Nigeria. Mr. President, I say submit.
Senator Solomon Adiola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Lagos West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, let me commend my friend, my brother, Senator Barau Jubril, for this very timely and very instructive bill that he has moved before the Senate today. Mr. President, this bill, if eventually passed into law, will address the issue of, 1, uncompleted project scattered across the length and breadth of this country. Mr. President, in the bill, it makes us to understand that over 11,886 abandoned projects across the country, valued at 7.78 trillion naira to complete this project. Mr. President, the implication of this is that whenever we refer to the GDP of our nation, these abandoned projects form part of what constitutes this GDP. Because from the day of consummation of the idea of this project, release of the initial funding for this project, all of this will have been added together as part of what will result into the country's GDP. So with this bill coming into place, if eventually passed, we address, aside the issue of the abandoned projects, it will allow for proper planning, long-term planning by the government. The idea that we start a project in the 3rd and 4th year of an administration, and when a new government comes in, he changed the priority and decided that, well, if it's a good idea this project has commenced, but I have my own agenda. And this is what results into abandoned projects. But with this bill passed into law, that means what that tends to do, it forbids for any administration, because there is a legal backing, to abandon any project of any administration, either in the past or that is coming. Secondly, proper and sound economic policies. This bill will address. Because successive governments come up with different policies, different ideas, different agenda, which is not a bad idea. But the overall effect of trying to abandon the ongoing policies and agenda of previous administrations result into a larger, major losses for us as a nation. And with this bill coming into play, it will play a very critical role in addressing this major issue. Also, in the area of funding sources, which the bill has identified, what that means is that no government will embark on any project if there are no funding sources for that particular project. It will be gone at the days when the ministries or an agency will sit down and award a contract without any funding backing it and the sources of funding of that particular job. With this bill into place, it will address this issue, and the issue of embarking on a project and there is a funding gap to complete this project will no longer be there. Because from day one of trying to award or embark on this project, all this funding gap and everything will have been addressed and addressed adequately. And knowing fully well, larger part of Nigerian economy today is a monolithic economy. We are just trying to start the diversification of our economy. So this bill will address a lot of issues. A lot of issues that will take care of all this idea of embarking on projects without funding, just trying to do something in favor, and there will be no, the idea of trying to say, okay, because doing this in this region, we have to do it in this region. No.
You may round up, please. Distinguished, you may round up. Senator Ahmed Njumagoji.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Njuma Goje, representing from the state. Mr. President, I stand to fully support this very, very important bill. According to his submission, he said there are about over 11,000 projects abandoned. That report, I'm aware of that report. That report says was concerned with federal government projects, not even state. That's about 10 years ago. I'm sure now the abandoned projects. No. It's not on. It's not. It's not. Mr. President, I'm sure now this project should be more than 20,000. And the amount should have risen beyond 7.7 trillion, maybe to over 10 trillion or even 12 trillion. But Mr. President, beyond the figures, the problem is the issue of putting selfish political interests over and above national or state interests. Politicians come, when they are newly elected, they come to office, they want to make their own name. They don't want to be associated with the success of the previous administration. They would like to have their own projects. They will be pushed to have their own projects, not minding that there are projects that have been ongoing. They want to establish their own. So what this bill seeks to do is to make it illegal for government to come and meet projects, not to continue with it and decide to embark on new projects. But to circumvent this kind of happening, we need to go back to the basics. We need to have proper planning. And we should not be planning for 4 years. We need to go back to this idea of having 10-year development plan, 15-year development plan, 20-year development plan, so that and make it legal and put it in this bill if possible, that whichever government comes should work within that approved plan. Once you do that, then there will be no need of today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing this, to satisfy this man, to satisfy this man, not because it's going to assist the people. So we need to go back and develop development plans. Maybe for 10 years, like in Gombe, for example, just last week we launched our 10-year development plan for Gombe State. And this is not for nothing, because we realized that we had about 3 administrations and our successors seem to not to build on the foundation we have laid. Rather, they want to make their own name. And that made them to come up with some white elephant projects, just because they want to create names for themselves. So, but with the development plan that we have set in Gombe, for example, and we intend to make it a law for the state, government that come will have to follow this development plan. So I think this bill is very, very important. It can be done at the national level, and the state governments should also be encouraged, because the bill may not be binding on the state governments. It's only binding on the federal government. So we need to also do it at the state level. In fact, the thing is more serious in the state, at the state level. And this bill will also tackle a very serious issue in this country, the issue of roads. I want to digress. There are so many abandoned roads, or ongoing, they call them ongoing. But you find that in a budget, he knows, he's the chairman of operation, a budget that requires 5 billion to complete that road, they will just provide 200 million or 150 million. So you know for sure that that road is not meant for completion. Instead of concentrating on completing these new ones, every year in, year out, new projects are awarded and awarded and awarded and awarded. To the extent now, even if we start giving out contract for roads in this country, it will take maybe 8 to 10 years before we complete the ongoing projects, ongoing roads in this country. And the same thing is replicated in the states. So this bill, I think, is timely, is welcome, and after passing it, like I say, we should encourage the states to also do something along this line, so that Nigeria will no longer be littered with so many uncompleted, abandoned, very important projects that have gobbled a lot of our resources that we call them tie-down money. They call it tie-down money. This project will cost 10 billion, you spend 7 billion or 8 billion, and you abandon it. The money is there tied down. Somebody will come again, he will start another new 10 billion project, and also spend about 7-6, then he will go, and another one will come. That's what has been happening in the last 20 years across the country. So I want to thank our distinguished colleague for bringing this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Senate.
Mr. President, I just wanted to draw attention to, I know this bill is a very well-intentioned bill, but I want to draw attention to the issue that has been raised by distinguished Senator Danjuma Goji, that we should be very careful, so that we don't touch on the autonomy of the states in matters like this, so that we should be aware that as important as this bill is, we should work it to only apply to the federal government. If we do so, the federal government and FCT, for which we have legislative competence on this particular kind of area. So I support this bill, but let us make it in such a way that it affects areas of our legislative competence as a federation, to affect only the federal government and FCT. And they encourage the state, just like Senator Danjuma Goji said, encourage the state also, the state assemblies, to make similar bills, in respect to their own states. That's my own comment, Mr. President.
Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Niger North. Let me align myself with the previous speakers and to commend our colleague for this very well thought out bill. And I think the point to be made here is to look at what is called cause and effect with respect to the issue he has brought before us. You realize that when projects are conceptualized, the objectives usually is to help bring about economic development, employment generation, and so many other development objectives for the benefit of Nigerians. So the implication is, when these projects are abandoned, these same benefits are also abandoned along the line. And so cumulatively over the years, we have developed a situation where, or we find ourselves in a situation where some of these things that are expected to be accrued by finishing these projects in terms of the output, outcome, and even in terms of the impact on our lives and the economy, we lost them. So I think by looking at this bill, and I totally agree that, of course, applicability should be at the federal level with the FCT, but then encouraging that the state, fortunately, like the previous speaker, Senator Danjuma Goje said, we begin to look in that direction. Because, Mr. President, unfortunately today, if you go to some states, it is the abandoned project at the federal level that has now turned to the hideout of criminals, terrorists. I have been privileged to be part of monitoring and evaluation team while I was in service, and we go around many project sites in this country, and what you see is quite appalling. And I think the number being quoted here is definitely far more than that. And so I think we are tying down a lot of resources by abandoning projects. And of course, it will bring in some element of discipline if we are able to have this bill in place. And it will give the country a clear impact pathway to making sure that when we say we want to tackle unemployment, we can actually trace what we are doing to tackle unemployment. Because if you have 10, 20 projects, you can be able to factor out how many unemployment gap you'll be able to bring out. So I think it's a very good bill, and I want to urge that my colleague support this bill. And of course, when we come to look at the details, we should also encourage a situation where agencies will be able to work together, because sometimes abandoned projects can actually be taken by some agencies. So we should look at the possibility so that it's all our national resource. There is no point some agencies have started a project, they don't have the need for it. Another agency has the need, but they cannot even take it up. So we should look at some of these cross-cutting issues also as we look at the details of the bill so that we can make the right impact. With this, I urge my colleagues to support that this bill be passed.
Senator Ahmed Adamalero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Muhammad Adamalero, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, let me also join previous speakers in commending the mover of this motion of this bill. Already we have Fiscal Responsibility Commission. If we follow the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Commission religiously and legitimately, there will be no need for abandoned projects. You cannot award contract on any project unless if you have funds for that project. And the implementation is continuously. There is not going to be any break as far as what is stated in the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Unfortunately, we don't follow that law anymore. So I will suggest very strongly that we should strengthen the Fiscal Responsibility Commission so that they will supervise the MDAs and ensure that the contract can only be awarded for projects when the money is available. If the money is not available, don't award the contract. If we do that, there will be no need for abandoned project. Secondly, Mr. President, let me commend this government, not because I happen to be part of it, but what I'm seeing is very, very practical. I was in the South, I went to the Northwest, I went to Southeast, I went to Southwest, and all the projects, but road projects that were awarded by a previous government, This government, when it came on board, said this project should continue. None of them has been abandoned. I counted more than 35 roads that are ongoing projects. Some of them are linking states, capitals, with another state capital. Dualization of roads, major highways that are constructed. I will give you an example. The second Niger bridge, it was awarded by President Goodluck Jonathan. And this government continued with the project vigorously, to the extent that now the second Niger bridge is almost 70% completion stage. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was also awarded during Obasanjo's period. It continued during Goodluck Jonathan's period. Now it has reached almost 70% completion stage. So, Mr. President, I agree we have abandoned projects, and it is due to the lack of adherence to the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Commission. We passed that act of the National Assembly, and we should do whatever we can through oversight function and ensure that Fiscal Responsibility Commission performs its job properly. If we do that, honestly speaking, there will be no need for abandoned projects. Mr. President, judicious use of resources is what government should do. President Buhari, during his 2019 budget speech and 2020 budget speech, he made it clear that priority will be given to all ongoing projects. And when we came to budget defense, when we call MDAs, if we see any new project that is not in line with the presidential speech, we normally call the minister to order that why did you include this project when you have ongoing project and you need money to complete this ongoing project? How do you start the new project? So we in the National Assembly also have the responsibility, particularly during the budget defense, that if we see any new project that has a lot of money, that needs a lot of money, and there are ongoing projects that are critically important, we should point out to the minister that he should go and delete that project and ensure that the ongoing projects are completed. Mr. President, if we do this, honestly speaking, we won't have abandoned projects. But I support the idea of the idea behind this bill. It's a good bill. It will make us to use our resources judiciously and avoid waste, and it will also make us not have abandoned projects. So I'm in support. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. In supporting this bill, if you look at the figure, 11,000 10 years ago, by now we should be talking about 50,000. I think what we need to do is to make sure that in carrying out our oversight function, just like Senator Alero said, that whenever they come with their budget, we should give priority to ongoing projects. Mr. President, imagine if the present administration decided to abandon the rail project with the level of where we are today, saying that they are not the one who started this, so they are not going to continue. We won't be where we are today. So we should try and erase the notion that people think bringing a new project that you will not even complete is better than completing the one you made there. It's a notion that we have, and it's very dangerous, and it's affecting the economy of this country. Mr. President, just this morning, I was talking to Chairman Water Resources, because there is a dam in my senatorial. It can take care of the whole of West Africa, and they've abandoned it since 15 years ago. The Keregosh Dam. We were just there last week again, and I saw that the amount they've already invested, the amount needed to complete is lesser than the amount they've already invested in this program. And if we continue like this, going midway, abandoning, going midway, abandoning, the economy will be nosediving. And we need to revive our economy. So I'm supporting this bill so that we will be able to stop the notion of people thinking that by starting my own project, it's better for me to complete the one I made. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Basi Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I thank and commend you for allowing exhaustive debate on this bill. It is clear that even you support this bill. Mr. President, in other developed economies, they have 50 years development plan, such that whatever government comes in, no matter the ideology, there are certain policies that are of national significance. And that's why these economies are growing. You know, but when you come in to maybe the Nigerian scenario, we also as legislature, as parliament, who approves the budget, approve medium-term expenditure framework, we must also begin to exhibit some element of consistency. Very soon, MTEF will be coming here. If you look at this NTEF and the previous NTEF, you will find out that there are extremely very significant changes, where you even have new projects more than the ongoing projects. Mr. President, if there is anything we need to do in line with what the leader has actually said, once we pass this bill and it is effectively implemented at the national level with effective and impactful evidences, there is no way the states will not domesticate it. The expenditure of federal government alone cannot take us anywhere. The states and the local government has a major part and a major role to play. So I support this bill, Mr. President. This bill requires the support of all Nigerians because of where we are as a country. So I support this bill. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Senator Abdullah.
Thank you very much, Excellency, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Abdullah Adamu, and I represent Missouri West. I stand to lend support to this very, very important bill on compulsory development planning and project continuity. Mr. President, listening to my very dear colleagues, it would appear to me that there are certain very, very important elements that make for the success of budgets and projects implementation, which we seem not to have emphasized. Yes, the law will assist in directing the efforts as much as possible, giving people no choice but to obey the spirit and construction of the law that we are talking about. Mr. President, the breakdown, if you permit that expression, the breakdown in national planning and national budgeting, and breakdown in the role of the civil service as the machinery for driving government policies is at the heart of this failure we're talking about. Here we are in a situation in which, before we got as educated as we are today, before we got involved with all the assistance IT is providing us in governance and in data gathering and banking of data, we had a working system in this country. We had a system in which we had what was called development plan. It may be 5-year development plan, it may be 10-year development plan, it could be 20-year development plan. And within that time frame of planning. You have sub-planning again. You may have 3 years, 2 years, 4 years rolling plan within the plan. This has been abandoned. And one reason that I seem to see that has caused this abandonment of planning and budgetary culture is the fact of egoism. People come into government and behave as if Nigeria starts during their time. We've come a long way from 1914 to date. When you have a person contest election, the moment he goes in there, nothing but his is good enough. So, yes, we need the law, but we need also to see how do we channel our national effort in such a manner as to override individual emotions and sentiments and egoism in government. We are repeating ourselves time and time again on the issue of abandoning projects. A person wins election, he comes into office, and he believes that the project he initiates, the project he starts are the projects. The projects that were on the ground, not abandoned, but within the time's line of the implementation project, he goes in there and he wouldn't see that as his own project. He refuses or is unable to see those projects, the expenditure on them before the exit of the administration, the preceding administration, is public money. It's not money for the governor or the president or the chair of a local government that left office. It is public money. And when you abandon it, you abandon public money, what that money should provide by way of circle, the welfare of whatever aspect of governance you are addressing. We have to take that seriously. The law alone cannot deliver us there. The law alone it cannot get us there. We need to have a new attitude, a new culture for project implementation. We sit here, we pass budgets, trillions and what have you. It took the discipline of the current administration to start talking hard. Every time since I've been here, that President Buhari came to address us, he talks about this discipline, about budget discipline. We put so much money, we have not seen the results. We put this kind of money, we have not seen the result in that sector. This has been the preoccupation of this administration. We will help. But in helping, we have some limitation. The limitation we have here is there seems to be conflict, Mr. President, and I say this with every sense of responsibility. There seems to be conflict in our function in making budget. The executive should initiate budget, but the budget should be subject to thorough scrutiny. You have a situation in which, as committee, sometimes when we sit, you want to do certain things with certain provisions. You bring a minister, he's going to be the better of the implementation of the project, but he will chicken out. Say, no. He's afraid. And this is not just this administration. I've been here since 2011. He's been going there, government after government. We must sit strongly. We'll stand up to our call, to our oath of office. We have definite provisions in the Constitution as to our role in budget making. If we fail, we are betraying the government, we are betraying our oath of office. And when you go budget after budget and you don't attain the objective for national development, it comes to nothing. It's a waste of funds. Another big thing, Mr. President, that is also helping this is corruption. People initiate projects in order to get funds channeled into the projects for them to just take the money away. There's a lot of work to do, Mr. President. beyond just this, but as much as I commend the effort of our dear colleague, who is also eyeing executive opportunities, Mr. President, we need to sit up with this issue. It's very critical. No budget can succeed if there's no discipline in the budget implementation. Even the formation of the budget should not just follow the emotion of an immediately coming in administration. There has been governance in the state or in the national level or local government level. The civil servants, seasoned civil servants, unfortunately, that's a bit shaky now. We don't seem to have them. If we have them, they now compromise the role they should play as civil servants to help technically, professionally, to guide the politician who may come to the ministry that he has the least know-how as to the mandate of that ministry. The civil servant, the civil service as a machinery of government, that's where the hope for effective budgeting, for effective monitoring and following the path of the implementation of the budget lies. We need to get back to the starting blocks on this matter. There is too much of just egoism, election, and you come in 2 years going on, so we are going for another election. So nothing is happening. We must stand up on the issue of this budget, and I support, the strongest time I can, this bill for compulsory development planning and project implementation. But over and above the law, the culture of good governance needs to be enhanced. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Issa Jibrin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin. I represent Kogi East. Mr. President, I think first we need to try to identify the root causes of some of these abandoned projects. From my own perspective, one of the causes really has to do with major cost variations. And of course, there is always problem of budget constraint. So when there's a major cost variation, definitely there is tendency that such projects may be abandoned. Then the other cause, I think, has to do with what I will call ego-induced projects. Some of these projects are ego-induced, and no succeeding government will want to take over such a project. Now, I feel that the primary determinant for continuity of any project is the overall economic benefit to the citizenry. Take, for example, the abandoned cancer project along Abuja Airport Road. I feel that that project deserves attention. That cancer project was brought on board so many years ago by Touray, the wife of our former president, Yaradua, and it has since remained abandoned. To me, such a project should not be abandoned. Then we have Ajokuta Steel, which to me, up to this very moment, has remained, a very bad story, a very, very, very sad story to everybody, because a lot of money has been pumped into that place, and up till date, the place is not functional. So much money has been expended in that place. We heard some time ago that the federal government wanted to revive that place. Again, that is becoming a story today. These are the type of projects that I think deserves continuity. Now, Mr. President, I want to suggest that the president should set up an economic team to look at the relative economic values of some of these projects and provide funds where possible. But, sir, we know that the government itself is constrained, and that is why they go around borrowing to fund some of these projects, or fund some of the existing projects. I want to believe that some of the projects that have been abandoned, that have profitability, underlying profitability records, should be able to, the Bureau of Public Enterprises should be able to either sell those projects outrightly to the private sector, or go into long-term lease arrangement with some of these private sectors. That is where the project is not purely for social value, but has underlying economic profit motive. I believe that some private investors will be interested in taking on such projects either by way of outright sale or by way of long-term lease. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Suswam. Gabriel Suswam.
Mr. President, I'm Dr. Gabriel Suswam, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, I want to add my voice in supporting the effort of my colleague, Senator Jibrin, who sponsored this bill. But, Mr. President, in the opening statement of the lead debate, He said the bill seeks to make development plan compulsory for all tiers of government. That is the aspect that I see a problem. And Senator Alero alluded to the issue of the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Public Procurement Act. Which state have refused? Most states, I don't think you have up to 5% of states who have domesticated those federal government laws. And so if we make this compulsory, as good as it is, it flaws the provisions of the Constitution. And so I have not seen the provisions of the bill, but maybe when it comes to actually looking at the provisions of the bill, if we must do this, we must also amend some provisions of the Constitution to accommodate this. Otherwise, it will not work, because we're operating a federal system where states are operating under a concurrent legislative list and the federal government exclusive. So we cannot most time load it over the state. They will not do it. But for the federal government, we can pass an enactment that makes it compulsory for the federal government, not federal government as per federal government civil service, and of course not including the state necessarily. Because if we make it compulsory, they must simply go to court and say, look, we will not be able to domesticate or operate under what you passed. And so as good as this is, because the issue of abandoned project, Mr. President, is something that should worry all of us. It has created a lot of problems. A lot of people have been paid. For instance, the dredging of River Niger, which was started by President Yaradua, equipment mobilized, they started the work, has been abandoned. The dredging of Calabar Port, with about $20 million was paid to a particular contractor, all of this have been abandoned. And so it had added to the economic woes of this country. And so, Mr. President, why this bill is very good and we must work on it, we should look at the aspect that we breach the provisions of the Constitution, so that when we pass it, it's not a bill that's in conflict with some provisions of the Constitution. But as it presently presented, some provisions of the Constitution are in conflict with some of these things. But we must look at it and pass it so that we can begin to have a direction as to how this government government go out runs. Especially when a government in opposition takes over from a government that is on seat. It becomes very difficult for them to continue, especially even at the federal. Yes, the current government, which I agree, have continued with the some of the issues or some of the jobs that were started by the previous administration, which was the PDP government, which is good. And the government and Nigerians are benefiting from it. And so if we have a law that makes it compulsory for a president to continue with other projects, that is good. But I don't think we should make it compulsory for all tiers of government, because the Constitution will not support that. Mr. President, I just wanted to add that to the debate.
Thank you very much for the various interventions, and I've purposefully entertained so much interventions because this is a very important bill, and therefore deserves our attention and our contributions. So those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to make comprehensive provisions for each of the government of the Federation to establish and maintain project implementation plans for the implementation of projects within their jurisdiction from inception to conclusion, and for other matters connected thereto, 2021 SB 224, second reading.
A bill for an act to make comprehensive provisions for each of the Federation, for each of the government of the Federation to establish and maintain project implementation plans for the implementation of projects within their jurisdiction from inception to conclusion, and for other matters connected there to 2021, second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs to report by within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues, once again. But let me also emphasize on the need for us to ensure that the concepts, the beginning of what a project we should have is very important. Because if at the beginning, at the conception of the project, it is based on some reasons rather than economic development, then it will be counterproductive for any succeeding government to come and continue with such projects. So we need to ensure that at the beginning, projects go through rigorous process of being properly analyzed for the benefit of the people. And surely, like Senator Gabriel Susam indicated in his intervention, this is only going to be limited to the federal government and not the states nor the local governments. But it is something that's so important for us to ensure that we continue with projects, whether the government is coming back or another is coming in. But let me also say on a lighter note that apparently there was a clear testimony from both sides of the aisle that this administration has been doing very well in the area of continuing with the projects that were started by the previous administration, which was PDP-led. And that is a good thing to say, and that's a good thing to do. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the FCT Borderline Communities Development Commission Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Wednesday, 2nd November 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Sani Musa to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Muhammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. Mr. President, I wish to lead the debate on the Federal Capital Territory Borderline Development Commission Establishment Bill 2021. Permit me to express my appreciation for the opportunity to lead the debate on the general principles of the Federal Capital Territory Borderline Development Commission Establishment Bill 2021. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 2nd December 2020. It should be emphasized that the proposal for the establishment of the FCT Borderline Community Development Commission is a fallout of the creation of the FCT, and its effects on communities and states are contiguous to the FCT. It was recommended in the Abuja Master Plan that a special joint planning body be established to address the socio-economic and security impact of the rapid urbanization of the FCT on border areas, which areas were clearly identified in the master plan. Indeed, while the absence of an appropriate legal and institutional framework has hampered attempts by previous administrations to establish a joint development zone comprising of 5 states of Nasarawa, Niger, Kogi, Kaduna, and Plateau, only the National Assembly and not the state houses of assembly has the constitutional legislative competence to resolve this institutional and legal conundrum in the interest of the less privileged Nigerians living in FCT border communities, such as Suleja, Mararaba, Tafa, Dakwa, Sabon Wuse, Karu, One Man Village, Otabalefi, Uke, Gurara, Karu, Kefi, Madala, Masaka, etc. Objectives of the bill. The objectives of the bill are as follows. Provide the legal and institutional framework for the planning, development, implementation, and coordination of infrastructural projects in the FCT borderline communities, such as Suleja, Mararaba, Tafa, Dakwa, Sabon Wuse, Karu, One Man Village, Autaba Lefi, Uke, Gurara, Karu, Kefi, Madala, Masaka, etc. Provide alternative sources of funding for infrastructural development projects for FCT borderline communities by allowing the federal government and the affected states and private companies to contribute to the fund established under the bill for such projects. Provide an alternative template for the decongestion of the Federal Capital Territory and reduce the security burden of congested borderline communities, and complement the work of the Department of Satellite Towns Infrastructure, DSTI, whose mandate is limited to the development of infrastructure around Buari, Kuje, Gosa, and satellite towns within the FCT. The passage of this bill is justified for a number of reasons. Firstly, it will address the problem of exponential population explosion vis-a-vis housing and infrastructural deficit in Abuja. Indeed, while the Abuja Master Plan projected the total population of residents in phase 1 to 4 of the FCT to have been 3 million, the population of Abuja as at today has exceeded 10 million inhabitants. The proposed commission will therefore execute a comprehensive program of action for housing development, elimination of slums, and promotion of diversity through special decongestion of housing opportunities for persons of lower income and generally improve social infrastructure in FCT border communities, as well as address the mounting security challenges. Secondly, since the Department of Satellite Towns Infrastructure, DSTI, established by the Federal Capital Development Authority, has its mandate restricted to infrastructural development in Buari, Kubwa, Kuje, Gosa, Anagada, and other designated satellite towns within the FCT. The passage of this bill is appropriate as it will care for communities on the border of the FCT, which now offers alternative housing to thousands of workers, including our legislative aides, and also serving a repository for the overflowing population from the FCT. The overriding principle behind the introduction of this bill is to provide the legal and institutional framework that will bridge the infrastructural gap between the FCT borderline communities and the FCT in order to help decongest the Federal Capital Territory. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, in compliance with Order 773 of the Standing Order of the Senate, as amended, with respect to the procedure on bill, compendium, and consolidation, which states inter alia that on the introduction of a bill, a compendium on background information and financial implications of such bills is passed into law, shall be delivered to all senators. The following compilation with regards to the aforementioned bill is hereby presented for the general information of the senators. I therefore invite the distinguished senators to kindly pass this bill without any delay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Distinguished Senator Mohammed Adamalero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Mohammed Adamalero, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, let me start by commending Senator Sani Musa for bringing this bill. It is true that in the Joint Planning Board, it is stated that the FCT should assist border communities bordering the FCT, namely towns and villages in Kogi, Nasarawa, Kaduna, and also Niger State. In fact, the worst hit is Niger State. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you know very well that the cost of living in Abuja is very high. As such, junior workers normally get accommodation around Suleja, Tafa, or Nasarawa State to be coming to Abuja town every day. And the facilities in these communities are overstretched. Whether it is school you are talking about, clinics, hospitals, roads, they are overstretched. And there is need for the FCT administration to assist these border communities in order to ameliorate the problems of development
providing the infrastructure they badly need. It is also true, restricted in the bill, that we have satellite town development, but it is not enough. The satellite towns are limited to FCT. It does not go beyond the Federal Capital Territory. And they are not enjoying the services provided by satellite towns infrastructure development. It is a good bill, Mr. President. It will decongest even the FCT itself, which is projected not to exceed 3.5 million people. But as the mover of the, or the sponsor of the bill stated, we now have more than 10 million people living in the Federal Capital Territory. And most of these move from towns, border towns that are very close to FCT into FCT. At the end of the day, they also walk out. Mr. President, you could remember around 2008, 2009, before the expansion of the 2 roads coming into Abuja. It was a nightmare, really, to come into Abuja in the morning. It takes you a minimum of about 2 hours from airport to reach the city gate. It also takes you close to about 2 hours from Masokoro to Kububa. When these 2 roads were expanded, it made the movement much easier. So this is not enough. We need border communities development commission expected in this bill. It is for this reason that I support this bill, and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you very much.
Senator Brian Abdullah Gobir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Brian Gobir, representing Sokoto East. Your Excellency, I rise to support this bill because of its importance. This bill, considering the borderline community around the FCT, I think is very important because you find that there are a lot of social costs that are passed to the borderline communities. And also there are a lot of unintended costs or consequences that are also passed through there. Because of the expensive nature of this place, you find that all these borderline communities, things are very expensive when you move around that area. And unfortunately, they are not getting anything. So by setting up this borderline commission, I believe they will be assisted greatly. And then the committee will look at, the commission will now look at the situation whereby they will fish out all the inherent problems that are within those borderline communities, whether it's in terms of roads, whether it's in terms of accommodation, assistance, because of the social costs that are passed to them, not because of their own whatever. I mean, just because of no cost of theirs. So I think it's important we pass this bill because it's very, very important and fundamental, and I therefore support it.
Senator Akubu Seni.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Yakubu Seni, representing Kogi Central. Mr. President, I rise to support this bill because it is a very important bill, and it's a very straightforward one. And when it is being raised, many people may be thinking that it only affects the border states like Kogi, Kogi, Nanja, Nasarawa, and Kaduna. I want to assure this House that everybody, virtually from all parts of these countries, are living in these border communities. And as such, we all have to key into this bill to support it so that it will pass through the second reading. One, why we should support this bill is, in terms of insecurity that is fast approaching FCT, manifested from all these border communities that we are talking about here. And by the time their welfare is being catered for, the needed facilities, infrastructures being provided for them, I think with that, the spate of insecurity that is manifesting in these communities will be reduced, and as such, the FCT will be safe, will be more safer than as it is today. In the recent time, we are hearing that places like Buhari, Sulejas, and Maraba, and Co., that there are some people that are living in this area. It's because it's like a slum, and any places like this is where insecurity, of course, hoodlums manifested. So as such, all of us need to key in to this bill and pass it through second reading. I so support, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act established the Federal Capital Territory Borderline Community Development Commission to control, regulate, and mitigate the problems faced by the communities around the Federal Capital Territory as a result of their proximity. 2021 SB 584, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal Capital Territory Borderline Community Development Commission to control, regulate, and mitigate the problems faced by the communities around the Federal Capital Territory as a result of their proximity. 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on FCT to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is the second reading of the National Examination Management Commission Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Wednesday, 3rd March 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Kabir Abdullahi Barkia to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Kabir Abdullahi Barkia.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I am Senator Engineer Kabir Abdullahi Barkia, representing Katsina Central. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I write to lead a date for an act to establish National Examination Management Commission to be saddled with the responsibility of coordinating and regulating all forms of all-level examination and other related matters in Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I go ahead and read with your permission. Background. Mr. President of the Senate and distinguished colleagues, it is with gratitude and humility that I rise to present this late debate on this most crucial bill, which when passed into law will have tremendous and vital impact on the growth, efficiency, development, and management of the education sector through the proper control and regulation of the examination bodies, especially in our dear country. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues from the Senate, it is imperative to note that the passage of this bill will effectively and efficiently regulate all forms of O-level examination being conducted by the National Examination Council, NECO, West African Examination Council, WAEC, General Certificate Examination, GCE, National Business and Technical Examination Board, National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, that's JAM, etc. So, establish the needed synergy and coordination for the true educational progress in line with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, that's UNESCO standards and global best practice. Specific contribution of these bills and the content of the bill. Mr. President, in a nutshell, the bill has 4 parts and 1 schedule. Below is the summary of this bill as follows. Part 1, the bill seeks to establish the National Examination Management Commission of Nigeria as statutory corporation. 2, the bill provides the governing board of the commission, its composition and function. 3, the bill provides effective regulation of all forms of O-level examination conduct, fees, result releases, and other attendant realities, etc. 4. The bill provides for an effective structure for the management of the Commission, starting and the funding for the Commission. 5. The bill provides for effective monitoring, evaluation, regulation, and control of all level examination in Nigeria, especially contains in the miscellaneous provision of the bill, such as power to make regulations, offences, and penalty, and power to give directives. Objectives of the bill. The bill would assist the court of law and other judicial bodies in resolving examination disputes emanating from operations of the examination bodies. 2. The bill will effectively coordinate all the activities of examination of the examination bodies, such as examination dates, fees, results, release, curriculum, etc. The bill will effectively set up a standard for education and learning for progressive development. 4. The bill will effectively reduce the youthful restiveness caused by the inconsistencies in the management of examination. 5. The bill will essentially and effectively addresses the overlapping conduct, timetable, result releases, etc. of the various examination bodies. 6. Comparative trend and international best practices in the management of the regulatory of examination. The bill presents the undeniable realities in the need to regulate the conduct of all-level examination bodies so as to ensure that their activities are in line with global best practice. To tell that test of English as a foreign language. Scores are primarily used by universities abroad as part of admission process. See this www.preschools.com. Then the International English Language Testing System is the world's most popular English language proficiency test for higher education and global migration. See it also www.techlets.britishcouncil.organization. According to JAM, weekly bulletin publication dated 30th June 2020, it vividly declared that out of 1.8 million JAM candidates registered for the year 2020, 1.3 million met the cut-off mark. 536,813 candidates had their results released, while 352,988 candidates' results were not released, and this affected the JAM admission for the year 2020. First, because of the delay in the conduct of the East African examination, Council, Senior School Certificate Examination, Secondary, and NAPTED, which supposed to conduct examination April-May 2020, were not ready to do so. Thirdly, JAM candidates awaiting results were not given admission, and over 1,352,988 candidates were massively affected. Finally, in 2020, JAM later considered candidates who uploaded their results on the board's website. All these inconsistencies will be solved when support the passage of this bill. Conclusion, Mr. President and the two Senates, I am very grateful for the opportunity given to me to lead the debate of this bill. Accordingly, I believe that all distinguished senators of the National Assembly will vigorously support and vote for passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Samegu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Sam Egu. I represent Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, in as much as I support this bill, I have an observation. And my observation is that in all the examination bodies listed here, JAM is included here, including the JAMB, is a misnomer, because every other agency listed are examination bodies that offer certificate, O-level certificate, like the title of the bill says. But JAMB does not offer certificate. JAMB is the body that ensures that one gains admission to universities, in which case you must have gotten O-level before you take JAMB. So it's a misnomer. So I support this bill, but JAMB should not be included because JAMB does not offer certificate in the first place. And again, you must have gotten O-level in any of these agency bodies before you even sit for JAMB. So that's my observation, Mr. President. Otherwise,
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the National Examination Management Commission to be saddled with the responsibility of coordinating and regulating all forms of O-level examination being conducted by National Examination Council of Nigeria, NECO, National Business and Technical Examination Board, NAPTEP, National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies, MBAS, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAMB, and other agencies of government responsible for conducting O-level examinations in Nigeria and for other matters related to 2021 SB 656, second read.
A bill for an act to establish the National Examination Management Commission to be saddled with the responsibility of coordinating and regulating all forms of all levels examination being conducted by the National Examination Council of Nigeria, NECO, National Business and Technical Education Board, NAPTEP, National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies, NBAS, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM, and any other agency of government responsible for conducting all-level examinations in Nigeria and for other related matters, 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to. Which committee is this? Basic. Okay, this bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Basic and Secondary Education to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Let me re-echo the observation made by distinguished Senator Samegu, and this should be closely looked into during the public hearing, because it will be an opportunity for stakeholders to look into it critically and offer their advice. No bill can be so perfect, but at least it gives us a headway into what we need to do to improve the situation. And I saw some of our colleagues raise their hands, but I think we have done justice to the bill. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the eighth order of the day is the second reading of the National Food Safety and Quality Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 3rd December 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Abubakar Kyari to move a motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Abubakar Kyari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I rise to lead the debate on the National Food Safety and Quality Bill, SB 589. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill for the establishment of the National Food Safety Council and the National Food Safety Management. This bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Thursday, 3rd December 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, food safety is a scientific discipline describing the handling, preparation, and storage of food in ways that prevent foodborne illnesses. It cuts across the entire food supply chain, including farming, harvesting, processing, food service institutions, packaging, storage, transportation, wholesale and retail food trading.
It involves various sectors such as health, agriculture, trade, environment, science and technology to have a proper coordination and synergy systems established. The existing food control and safety system in Nigeria is not fit for this purpose. Apart from being obsolete and ineffective, the food legislations and institutional components require immediate reform to enable it meet national and international obligations. Nigeria currently operates a multi-agency food safety governance system where food safety control is fragmented among various MDAs and the 3 tiers of government. The consequence of this arrangement is the attendant challenge of overlapping functions, multi-jurisdictions, lack of coordination, and general ineffectiveness. This scenario has led to 1, Nigerian consumers being exposed to risk of health hazards arising from consumption of contaminated and unwholesome locally produced and imported foods, and 2, loss of consumer confidence leading to rejections of Nigerian food produce in the international markets. Foodborne illnesses account for loss of billions of dollars in healthcare-related and industry costs annually. According to the Nigerian Integrated Disease Surveillance and Response 2014, there were 1,049,550 recorded cases of diarrhea alone in the country, with 1,164 deaths. Just last year, over 100 people died from Lassa fever, with outbreaks reported in 20 of the 36 states of the Federation. Other cases of food and waterborne illnesses such as typhoid fever, cholera, cancers, etc., are becoming widespread and are clearly underreported. Nigerian agricultural produce is currently being rejected in the international communities, mostly on safety and quality grounds. More recently, best known is the suspension by European Union of the importation of Nigerian dried beans into the European market. If this is left unchecked, it will have a significant effect on the economic diversification plan of this administration, which presently is also hinged on the export of agricultural produce to earn much needed foreign exchange. The function of the Council shall include 1, protecting the health of consumers from hazards which may be present in food and animal feed. 2, establishing the general principles of official control of food and feed safety, the obligations of food and feed business operators, and 3, defining of the functions and powers of institutions of federal and state governments with the objective of ensuring that food and feed safety risks are effectively managed and that food is of the nature, substance, and quality expected by the purchaser. In line with Order 77, subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Order 2015 as amended, a compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of the Council is hereby attached. Mr. President, distinguished senators, distinguished colleagues, I urge you to support this bill for the second reading. Thank you very much.
Senator Francis Ebezem.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. Let me start by thanking Senator Yari for this timely bill. Truly speaking, Nigerians have produced enough food that will take care of our country and for export. However, a lot of these food products are actually wasted or destroyed before it can be used. So it's important for us to note that preservation of our food resources and production will go a long way to solve the food challenge of our nation. a nation of 200 million people that has the capacity to produce food, but allow its food to be wasted, can not do much economically or otherwise. This bill is important. It will not only solve the challenges of diseases, it will also help the exportation of our food products, thereby increasing foreign exchange. The Council, the National Food Safety and Quality Bill 2021, if properly streamlined and passed, will help this nation in production. It will help us in food safety. It will also encourage food baskets in so many different localities to be stored properly, preserved. We have seasons. A lot of times, most of our food production is seasonal. The amount of wastages, if properly packaged and curbed, can bring back the food production and quality, food production quality and growth of this nation. Mr. President, I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Senator Sanu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Muhammad Sani Musa, Niger East Senatorial District. I rise to support this bill. Looking at how our farmers, just as the previous speaker have said, been losing our food products. You can imagine today it's very difficult with all the food, all the vegetables, all the fruits we produce in Nigeria to be able to export it out of Nigeria easily. When you go to places like in Europe, markets today, you will see other products from smaller countries. Why is it like that? It's because they have standards and they have a body that look at those standards. We have international inspection agencies like SGS, Intertech. They are still in Nigeria, but they don't perform the functions that will help our farmers to be able to export their products out of this country. So I believe if we have an agency like this, which will also work with other agencies elsewhere to be able to meet the international best practice in exportation of food items, we'll be able to remarkably bring back agriculture as one of our sources of revenue in this country. And as such, I believe this is a very good bill and we should all give it the necessary support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Nicholas Tofomo.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. This is a very lovely bill, but we lost the cognizance that electricity plays a big role in storage. For instance, if you harvest from the farm and you bring it home and you store it somewhere, if there's no electricity to provide storage facilities, we run into problems. It's a very lovely bill, but we have to look at good roads, electricity, all our structure must be working. If they are working properly, the agencies will be able to function very well and will be able to get good results. So we should not just omit electricity. Electricity is very important in setting up this opportunity. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate. Observation. Okay, observation.
Mr. President, the only thing we observe is that this bill will definitely encroach the powers of NAFTA, standard organization, and also the shipment inspection agents, because they are going to perform same or similar functions, particularly that of NAFTA. And I think it's important, maybe when we go to the public hearing, to point out how this can be handled so that there will be proper synergy.
Okay, I think that is all right. Let me put the question first. Those in favor that this will be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act established the National Food Safety Council and the National Food Safety Management Committee for the official control of food and feed safety, the obligation of food and feed safety of business operators, and defines the functions and powers of the institution of government with the objective of ensuring that food and feed safety risks are effectively managed, and for related matters 2021 SB 589, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the National Food Safety Council and the National Food Safety Management Committee for the official control of food and feed safety, the obligations of food and feed business operators, and define the functions and powers of institutions of government with the objective of ensuring that food and feed safety risks are effectively managed, and for related matters 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development to report by within 4 weeks. The point raised by Senator Aliru is important that when we go to the public hearing, we should be able to differentiate, or at least ensure that there is no encroachment on the functions of this body with that of SON. I think it's important, sorry? And NAFDAC. So I think it's a worthy of consideration. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the ninth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Samuel Omi Egu on the senseless and brutal murder of innocent and defenseless indigents of Izzi clan in Ado local government area of Benue State by alleged herdsmen. A call for justice. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Samuel Omini Egu to move this motion.
Distinguished Senator Sam Egu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Sam Egu, representing Ebonyi North. Mr. President, and my dear colleagues, it is with a heavy heart again that I present this motion on the senseless and brutal murder of innocent and defenseless indigenes of Izzi clan, my people, in Ado local government area of Benue State by alleged herdsmen. A call for justice. Mr. President, Senator Abamoru is also a co-sponsor of this bill. The Senate notes with deep regret the sadness, the unabated series of murder of innocent citizens and wanton destruction of property in different parts of the country by alleged herdsmen, devastating communities and wantonly destroying lives and property. Alarmed that on Sunday, the 30th day of May 2021, alleged herdsmen again invaded Ndoabashi village, Obataboro village, and Odoke village, all in Ado local government of Benue State, and gruesomely murdered in cold blood 62 innocent indigenes of Izzi clan of Ado local government area, destroying about 70 homes, burned down 2 markets, and destroyed with explosive device the only functional health center in the area that was built by the Sudan United Mission, while injuring about 50 persons who are currently receiving treatment at Federal Teaching Hospital, Abakaliki, concerned that despite several motions raised and adopted on the floor of this Senate, the gruesome murder of innocent citizens by the alleged herdsmen has continued unabated, and if nothing drastic is done to stop this unfortunate trend, and the wicked and senseless killings, kidnapping and destruction of property may continue. Accordingly, resolved to one, condemn in the strongest terms the gruesome murder of 62 indigenous of Iji clan of Ado local government area of Benue State and the wanton destruction of homes, markets, and hospitals by alleged herdsmen. 2, observe a minute silence in honor of the victims of the attack. 3, direct the Nigerian police and other relevant security agencies to carry out comprehensive investigation of this dastardly attack and promptly arrest and prosecute the perpetrators. 4, request the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to immediately intervene through the provision of relief materials to the families of the victims, the displaced persons in the affected communities, and the injured persons who are currently receiving treatment at the Federal Teaching Hospital, Abakaliki. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader, you may say a few things because we have only 2-3 minutes to complete everything, if you wish to.
Well, Mr. President, I'd like to second the motion and also note with trepidation and concern these incidences, which have become very common across the country. And some of these are issues that have been raised earlier in the morning from a motion that was raised by distinguished Senator Comrade Abba Moro and several other colleagues over the last few days and in recent times. We have been having a lot of challenges.
Are you suggesting we go to the prayers? Because we have only 1 minute left.
To go to the prayers, and treat it in the same way that we have been treating other matters of this nature.
All right, thank you very much, Leader. We'll go to the prayers. Prayer 1, condemn in the strongest terms the gruesome murder of 62 indigenous of Iji clan of Ado local government area of Benue State and wanton destruction homes, markets, and hospital by alleged herdsmen. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, those in favor of prayer 2, a minute silence say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 4, those in favor of prayer 4 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. A minute silence. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
For this, the single chamber to suspend the consideration of all other items on the order paper to another legislative day. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the remaining items on the order paper be suspended till another legislative day say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion for adjournment of the Senate until Tuesday. When is Tuesday? Tuesday, 8th June 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do adjourn till Tuesday, 8th of June 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till Tuesday, 8th June 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt. Thank you.